Hi everybody, welcome to our live event. My name is Brenda KB Anderson and I'm very excited to show you guys today how to make the Brigid cowl. So this is a free download. You'll have the whole pattern here once you download that. And you can, of course, you can just follow along with the video tutorial, but the tutorial is meant to supplement the instructions. You're probably going to need to download that if you want to make this, because there's a lot of different kinds of cabling going on here. So anyway, I'm very excited to show you this. I love making crochet cables, and I also love Ireland. I had the very good fortune to be able to go there many years ago. I went with my friend Katie. We had such a good time. And ever since I left there, I have wanted to go back. It was so beautiful and just such an amazing experience. And I'm trying to, with this project, kind of capture some of the things I was feeling when I was there. So this is a very special project for me. I hope you guys like it too. I'm happy to see that there's a bunch of you here already. Hello, if you guys want to say hi to me, you can drop that in the chat. If you just want to say like where you're crocheting from, if you're celebrating St. Patrick's Day this year, also you can drop that in there too. I'd like to hear from you guys. And so all week long, this whole week, we're doing all these St. Patrick's Day or Irish themed projects. So yesterday there was brownies, which look super delicious. I don't know if you guys saw that. Today's the cowl. Tomorrow is Colleen Took. I think I'm saying her name right. I hope I am. She's a fabulous quilter. She's going to be doing like a St. Patrick's Day quilting project. And then Thursday, I'm going to be working on this hat, the Donegal hat. This is a knitted project. And then Friday, Emily Steffen is doing, I think maybe a quilted project, a quilt square with a rainbow. It looks really, really cute. So you got to come back and check all that stuff out. All right, well, I'm glad that you guys are here. I hope that you're excited to make this project. So this is basically just like a long strip. You know, you could make this into a scarf. You could make panels of this and put them together as a blanket. It's just one long strip so that, you know, there's nothing fancy going on with that piece except for the cabling. So we can just concentrate on all that cabling goodness. You don't have to worry about shaping or anything like that. And then once you make that strip, it just gets stitched together right along here to kind of create this sort of bandana-shaped cowl. And I like to wear this, actually, I like to wear the tip of this kind of off to the side a little bit, but you could wear it straight down. There's lots of ways, different ways you can wear it. Or like I said, you could certainly make this into a scarf if you're not a cowl kind of person. There's lots of options here, but the most important thing from this live event is really to kind of understand how all these stitches work, how you can make all these cables crossing in different ways and overlapping and all that sort of thing. So I'll be going through all of that with you guys. So in order to make this project, of course, you're going to need your pattern and you're going to need some yarn. I used about 520 yards of like a heavier, slightly heavier worsted weight yarn. A regular worsted weight would work just fine as well. I got my yarn from, this actually came from Ireland. I ordered yarn from Ireland because like I said before, I was really trying to like recreate some of those, just that feeling of being in Ireland. So I have this book. I think it's by Carol Feller, who is an Irish knitter, mostly knitter. I think she might crochet too, but she has some stuff on Craftsy, at least one class. That's how I ended up finding her. And I got her book. Right now I'm struggling to remember what it's called. Contemporary Irish Knits maybe, or something like that. But in that book she talks about all the different mills that are in Ireland producing yarn. And so that's how I found this yarn that I'm going to be using here today. So I do have links for that in the download if you're interested in it. It's a really beautiful yarn. I watched a video on their website of them actually, you know, they have some footage of them making the yarn and mixing all these different colors together, because I don't know if you guys can see, but there's all these different little flecks of different colors. It's just really super gorgeous, and I feel very fortunate to have been able to make this project out of this beautiful, beautiful yarn. But you can certainly substitute with a different worsted weight yarn if you have something on hand that you'd like to try. I just wanted to kind of highlight that because that's part of what is making this project feel really extra special to me. All right, so you're gonna need the yarn, you're gonna need a hook. I am using an H, which is a 5mm hook. You're going to need a yarn needle for sewing a little bit together at the very end, And also you're going to be needing just a few stitch markers, removable stitch markers, or pins or something for the very end when we do that little bit of stitching. It's not a lot of sewing, just a small amount. So that's it. All right, so let's get started making our cables. If you guys have any questions, definitely put those in the chat as well. I will be monitoring the chat. Looks like we've got a bunch of people popping in here already. We've got Shay saying good morning. Good morning, I'm glad you're here. And Cindy's here. Good morning, Cindy. I'm glad you're here. I'm geeking out that Brenda used Studio. Oh, you already know this yarn. I wonder, have you used it, Cindy? It's really beautiful. And Hannah says good morning from Alabama. Barbara says good morning from Tampa. And Susan says, hi, can't wait to crochet this cowl for St. Patrick's Day. Awesome. And Lady Crochet is here. Hello. Hannah B says, I personally don't celebrate St. Patrick's Day, but I love this pattern. Awesome. Well, I'm glad that you like this pattern. It's a very exciting cable. It's so wide and just interesting to work on. It's just a fun one. And Ava is saying good morning from Redcliffe, Kentucky, and Mary is saying good morning from Texas, and there's Barbara saying good morning from New York. Hi, you guys. I'm glad you guys are saying hi to me. Hello. Thank you guys for being here. I appreciate it. Okay, so let's get started on our pattern. So if you are not a chart reader, that's totally fine. I've written everything out, just regular style throughout the pattern. If you are a chart reader, though, this is basically fully charted, as you can see here. I'm going to be teaching from the chart. Let's see, I'll turn it like this. I'm going to be teaching from the chart, but just know, like if you already downloaded this, you can kind of make reference to this, but you could always go back and download it later. You can just kind of hang out and watch and just kind of soak it in, and then you can always go back and watch little parts of it later. So there's basically I think 19 rows of a repeat throughout here. Actually, it's even less than that because we're repeating from this point here to this point here. You can see that this section right here looks just like this section. So really, you're going to be making this, once you go through this, you know everything you need to know throughout the rest of the cowl. I'm mostly going to be focusing on the rows where the cabling is done. All of the wrong side rows are made with what I call knotted double crochet, but it's also called herringbone half double crochet. That is like the background of this cable pattern. It makes a really awesome background for cables. I started doing this a couple years ago, about a couple years ago. I started using herringbone half double crochet as or knotted double crochet as I like to call it, as the background for cables. And I mean, it is just the perfect fabric because it's nice and flat. It doesn't distract from all the texture of the post stitches, and there aren't a bunch of holes between. It's a good height. There's just like so many things I like about it. So very excited about that little discovery because it is made, there's lots of other backgrounds that you can use when you're doing cables as well. I have my favorites though. All right, so I'm going to be starting out with 33 chains for my foundation chain. And then we're going to begin by working a right side row. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, and then the 33. So that 33rd, the very last stitch the last chain that we made, that's just going to be a turning chain. We're going to be working across 32 stitches back and forth. It's, the stitch count remains the same as you work your way through the cowl. It's always going to be those 32 stitches. I also wanted to point out that I am doing my samples in an acrylic worsted weight yarn. This is not the yarn that I designed the cowl with. And I just switched to this yarn because I wanted to make sure that I had a light enough color that you guys could really see what I was doing. That green color is absolutely gorgeous and I love it so much, and I really wanted to do my samples in that, but I just wasn't sure if it would be a little too dark for you guys to be able to see what I was doing, so I switched to this. Okay, so I'm going to begin by working into the bottom of my chain. That leaves this edge to be the edge of my fabric, and it looks really neat and tidy. So what I mean by that is if you look at your chain, you'll see all those little V's all stacked up like that. If you roll them over onto the table, you'll see all these little horizontal dashes. Those are the places that I'm going to be inserting my hook underneath. So on row number 1, I'm going to begin by doing 2 single crochets. So I'm skipping that very first chain because that was just a turning chain. And here's our next chain. We're going to do a single crochet here and then another single crochet. So to do a single crochet, in case you're newer to crocheting, you just insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through 2. That's a single crochet. So we've got those 2 stitches already here. And the next 4 stitches are not a double crochet, or herringbone half double crochet, as many people call it. So to do that, we're going to yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, and we're going to pull that loop through the next loop on our hook, just through 1 loop here. And then we're going to yarn over again and pull through 2. Let me show you that again. So yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up, pull that same loop through the next loop on your hook, yarn over, and pull through 2. And that creates this little sort of a knot or a bump, that sort of horizontal looking little dash right there. So I would definitely recommend just taking a minute and looking at the difference between your single crochets and your knotted double crochets, or your herringbone half double crochets, whatever you want to call these, just to see if you can tell the difference between those stitches, and watch, just kind of look at that as you go across, because on row number 3, we're going to need to be able to tell the difference between them. And I'll tell you, you can also count your stitches as well, so it's not like you have to be able to spot it, but it makes it much, much easier to work row number 3 if you can tell the difference between your single crochets and your herringbone half double crochets just by looking at them. Okay, so we did 2. We're going to do 2 more. Yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up, pull through the first loop on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2. Same thing, yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up, pull through the first loop, yarn over, pull through 2. So now we have 2 single crochets, 4 knotted double crochets. I'm just going to call them knotted double crochets from now on. And then we're going to do 4 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 4 knotted double crochets. We're just basically switching back and forth, doing 4 at a time now until we get pretty close to the end. So we're going to do those 4 knotted double crochets. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 4 more single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 knotted double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4 knotted double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, and we should have 2 stitches left, and we're going to do a single crochet in each of those 2 stitches. So 1 and 2. And before you go any further, just take a look, make sure you've got 2 single crochets, and then you're alternating 4 knotted, 4 single, 4 knotted, 4 single, 4 knotted, 4 single, 4 knotted, and then 2 single at the very end here. All right, so now we're going to chain 1, and we're going to turn our work just like we're turning a page in a book. And then we're going to work across the wrong side. Okay, so this is going to become a wrong side row. And that will become much more apparent once we start doing the post stitches. It'll be very obvious what the wrong side is, so you don't need to worry about that. So we're just going to be working knotted double crochets all the way across. So again, we use that one chain as a turning chain. Throughout this piece, it's always just one chain as a turning chain. And then you're never going to work into that turning chain. It doesn't count as a stitch. All right, we're going to work those knotted double crochets all the way across our row. So the hardest part of this project, I think, is getting the first 3 rows done. Once you get that done, you're going to start being able to see where you're going to put your post stitches. And so, just make sure for those first 3 rows that you really get everything. You're kind of counting your stitches, making sure you get them in the right spot, because that's setting everything up for later. And you're just going to want to make sure that everything is in the right place. Otherwise, you won't know where to make your stitches on row number 5. So this is row number 2, and all of those even numbered rows, they're all wrong side rows. They're all going to be placing one knotted double crochet into each stitch across. So really you only have to pay attention on the right side rows. All right, we have just a few more. We've got lots more hellos coming in. Oh my goodness. I gotta back up a lot here. Okay. Cindy's saying yes, Contemporary Irish Knits by Carol Feller. Okay. I hope I'm pronouncing her name right. I'm sure I'm not saying it with the proper Irish accent because I'm not good at that. But her work is just beautiful and amazing, and I highly recommend checking her out if you're a knitter. But yes, that is a very good book. That's just in case you are just kind of joined us later. That I was talking about that earlier because that's where I found out about this yarn that I ordered. Not the yarn I'm using here, but the Studio Donegal. This is a soft merino yarn that is spun in a mill in Ireland. Okay, so I got to the end, I chained one, and I'm turning my work. Now we're on row number 3. I'll bring this in here for just a little bit so you guys can see. Row number 3, we're going to begin with these post stitches. So if this is overwhelming to you, you don't have to worry about the chart because I'll be showing you what to do. But if you're a chart person, I kind of want to show you what we're looking at here. So these longer stitches with the hooks on the ends, those are the post stitches. And so we've got 2 front post double crochets in a row. These are the front post double crochets. They look like this in your chart. And I just want to point out when they're going straight up and down in your chart like that, they're going to be a front post double crochet. If the stitches are slanting, like see how these are at an angle, even these are at an angle. It's less of an angle, less sharp of an angle, but they are not straight up and down. Whenever they're slanting off to one side or the other just a little bit, they are a taller stitch. So they're front post treble crochets. Now you can tell because they have that little extra hash mark there, but I know the chart can be kind of hard to look at. Also, when you're just stitching back and forth, it just really helps to just know, oh yeah, I'm crossing my cable or I'm moving my ridges over to the side. That means I'm using the taller stitch. That means it's the front post treble crochet, not a front post double crochet. And I'll be showing you how to make all these stitches in just a little bit. I just wanted to have a little bit of background here about this, the way that the cables are made. Now here's another place right here. You can see that there are front post treble crochets here, and they're black, and now there are like a gray front post treble crochet back here. They look like they're kind of fading away into the distance. What this is telling you is you've got front post treble crochets overlapping front post treble crochets, and the darker ones are the ones that are going to be on the surface of your work. And we'll get more into that once we start working across row number 5. But I just wanted to kind of call that to your attention when you're looking at this chart. That's why some of them are looking super faded. It's because they're worked behind a stitch. So they're over. There's some stitches in front and some behind. That's what creates that kind of crossing over cable look. All right, so we are working across row number 5, and we're going to start out by making 2 front post double crochets, and we're going to be making them into row number 1, which was down here. Remember how I had said, you know, try to tell the difference between your single crochets and your knotted double crochets. This is where this is going to come in very handy, because you can just kind of take a look at those stitches down there. So we're going to do a front post double crochet. So that starts with a yarn over, and we're going to go around the post of this single crochet stitch right here. So that's from row number 1. So we're just inserting our hook, and then it's going to come out on the other side of it. We're going to yarn over and pull up a loop, and now we're going to finish our double crochet basically as normal. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. There's our first post stitch. We're going to do another one in the single crochet right next to it. So we're going to yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now we've got 2 post stitches here. Whenever we're making a post stitch, we're going to skip the stitches that are behind. We're not going to be working into the working row behind those posts. So we're skipping this stitch, we're skipping this stitch, and then we're going to work into the next 4 stitches. And in those 4 stitches, we're placing a knotted double crochet, because it's not a post stitch. So if you're doing a raised stitch, it's a front post double crochet or a front post treble crochet. Otherwise, if you're working a background, it is a herringbone half double crochet, also known as the knotted double crochet. Okay, so we're skipping those first 2 stitches. We're going to yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, pull through that first loop on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2. That was the first. Let's do 3 more. 1, 2, 3. So those are all worked into the working row. Now we're going to be making 4 more post stitches right here in our chart. And they are this whole row, row number 3. Whenever you're working a post stitch, you're working it into row number 1, and you're working it into a single crochet. Okay, so that's why we want to tell the difference between our single crochets and our knotted double crochets. You can also count. So like here's the next stitch in row number 1 we didn't use yet. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are all knotted double crochets. There's our single crochet right there. So we're going to yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, and we're going to do that 3 more times around each of the next 3 single crochets from row number 1. Okay, so now we've got 4 post stitches, and we're going to skip those coordinating 4 stitches from that working row. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We're skipping those, and we're going to work into this stitch right here. So we're doing 4 knotted double crochets in a row. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we're going to drop down and find those single crochets. There's the first one. And we're going to do 4 front post double crochets down in row number 1. So we're just alternating between, 4 front post double crochets and then 4 knotted double crochets. All of the post stitches, all of the front post double crochets are made into or around the posts of the stitches we made in row number 1. They're all worked around those single crochets. And then all the knotted double crochets are made into the working row. And just remember to skip those 4 stitches that are behind the posts that you made. You kind of always need to check, pull your work forward and look for those. All right, here are the next 4 front post double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Another knotted double crochet here. And 3 more in that working row. So you have a total of 4. All right, now we have 2 stitches left. Those are front post double crochets. Again, now down in those single crochets from row 1. So basically, if you just look across row 1, if you see a single crochet, you make a post stitch around it. And if it is a knotted double crochet, you work a knotted double crochet into the working row above it. So this is what your piece should look like, okay? And then we're going to chain 1 and turn our work and make a knotted double crochet into each stitch across. So actually I should explain this a little bit. When you have those post stitches that you work, you will end up with this sort of ridge back here because you didn't work into that working row. That's okay, you just ignore that ridge and you're working into the tops of the post stitches that you made, so up here, okay? Just in case that was confusing. So you're going to be working those knotted double crochets all the way across to the end. And then your piece will look like this. Okay, so we have this is the wrong side, and I know this looks confusing right now. We don't really have enough of the pattern built up to obviously see what the right side and the wrong side is, but you'll see as we work along, it'll become very obvious in the next couple of rows. Okay, so this is the row that we had just finished working. We're going to chain 1 and turn, and so we're starting on row number 5 here. So row number 5, we're again starting with those front post double crochets, and if you just take a look at our chart, they go all the way along the edge of that, the edge of the rectangle that we're making. So we are always going to start off with those 2 front post double crochets when we're working a right side row. And then there's always going to be at least 2 knotted double crochets after that. Okay, and the same thing mirrors it on the other side. We're always going to have those front post double crochets at the very end. And right before that, there's going to be at least 2 knotted double crochets that come before that. So the rest of the pattern kind of changes around where things are, but that's always going to be true. Okay, so now we can start to see where to place our stitches. So here's those post stitches from below. I can even put my thumbs behind them. We're going to be working post stitches from now on. All the post stitches that we're making are made into post stitches from the previous post stitching row, basically from the previous odd numbered row, which is a right side row. So we're going to begin with 2 front post double crochets down here into these posts. So 1 and 2, and then we're going to skip the coordinating stitches behind, so skipping 2 stitches because we just made 2, and we're going to do a knotted double crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. So we're looking at the black row here. I'm going to place a magnet above it and see if that makes things a little easier to read, but basically we're working straight across row number 5 right there. So every time you do a right side row, you're looking at the black symbols in the chart, and every time you do a wrong side row, they're going to be blue. And if you're just reading the instructions, you don't need to care. Okay, so here are my 4 knotted double crochets. Okay, and now we're going to do some cable crossing because we're right here in our chart. So remember how I said if your stitches are slanting off to the side in the chart, that means it's going to be a treble crochet. So if you're crossing things over or you're not stitching straight down below, it's always going to be a treble crochet. So here's the 4 stitches, the 4 posts that we're going to be working into. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to skip the first 2 posts, and we're going to make a treble crochet, front post treble crochet into each of the next 2. So these 2 right here. So we're going to yarn over twice. Skip this one, skip this one. Here's the 3rd one. We're going to work our post stitch right around that. 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to yarn over twice and do the same thing in the next post stitch right here. 1, 2, 3. And then you can see by looking at the chart, and this is written out in the instructions as well, after we work those 2 posts, we're going to go back here and work these 2 posts. So the important thing is, though, to note, we're going to be working behind these 2 stitches, so our stitches end up behind those 2. So in order to do that, let's yarn over twice. We're going to get ready for our front post treble crochets. Instead of working like this, because this would make our stitches lay on top, we're going to just tuck our hook underneath those posts, like that, and then we're going to go underneath the posts we're stitching into, and we're going to just kind of pull that up. And then we're going to complete our front post treble crochet. And then we're going to do that again in the next stitch. So we're going underneath these 2 stitches. You can kind of just pull them out of the way. And then you're going to go underneath that post, that second post that we skipped, and then bring that post up here like that. And then you can finish your front post treble crochet. Even though it's front post, because we're working on the front of our fabric, it is behind the 2 stitches that we just made, okay? And sometimes our cables will cross in this way. This is a little bit trickier to stitch because you have to get your hook behind those 2. Sometimes we're going to be working on top of those. So that is something you have to pay attention to in the pattern. All right, so we're skipping the 4 stitches in the working row, 1, 2, 3, 4, because we just made 4 post stitches. And then we're going to work 4 stitches, 4 knotted double crochets, 1 into each of these next 4 stitches. And then we're going to do another exact same thing with the cables crossing over. So yarn over twice, skip the first 2 posts, and then we're going to work under the 3rd one, making that front post treble crochet. So yarn over twice, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, and we're going to be working behind those 2 stitches. So we're going to yarn over twice, get your hook behind those, and then you're going to grab the first post we stitched, and we're going to complete our front post treble crochet here, and then we're going to make 1 in the neighboring stitch. So you got to get behind those stitches. There we go. Skip those 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and make knotted double crochets in each of the next 4 stitches. All right. So as you can see in this chart, this is repeated 3 times. So you're crossing over, you're making like these little segments that cross over each other here, here, and then you will do another one here, exactly the same way. You'll finish up with 4 stitches in, 4 knotted double crochets, and then you'll have those last 2 front post double crochets worked into the post stitches down here below, okay? So, and then after you do that, after you finish up this row, you're going to turn your work and work all the way across, making your knotted double crochets all the way across so that you can start on the next row. So your piece will look like this once you have all 3 of those done. So 1, 2, 3, get your little post stitches at the very end. And then you're going to do that 1 row of knotted double crochets all the way across. And then I will show you row number 7. Let me just get caught up here. Oh, Kelly's asking how many double crochet strands if I, not double crochet, double knit strands if I want to, or DK weight yarn if you want to hold them together. I would try with only 2. It's going to make it probably a little bit bulkier. I would try with just 2. You might also be able to just do that with one strand of DK, and then it'll probably just be a little bit narrower, but you could do an additional repeat of the cable chart. And so your cowl will just be like a little bit narrower in this direction, but I still think it would be wide enough to look really nice and be warm. So then you could just do an additional repeat of the cable pattern if you felt like it wasn't quite long enough. And then you may have to go down a hook size so you don't have like holes between your stitches. That's a little experimenting you could do. I think holding 2 strands of double crochet or double knitting yarn, DK weight yarn, I think holding 2 of them together might make it a little bulkier than you want it to be. But I guess it depends on the yarn, so you'll just have to test that out, I guess. Oh, and Cindy's saying the tweed yarn that I use from Knit Picks has Donegal tweed bits. That's why she was geeking out about the yarn. Awesome. Yes, I love that Knit Picks yarn. I've used that many times. Oh, we have Nora saying hello from Sweden, and we've got a hello from New York and from Northern Virginia. I'm glad you guys are all here and saying hi. And someone from, we got Melinda saying hi from Northern California. Hello. Okay, we have a question. Are the cable look alike, or do they actually cross over? I think you're asking if it just looks like it crosses or if it actually does. You'll see as I'm working on this what we're doing. We're basically switching the order of the stitches that we work into, and they do actually cross over, like the stitches we make are crossing over each other. I hope I answered your question. If I did not, you can come back in here. Oh, we have got stumped right from the get-go. Oh, okay, well you can always go back and watch this multiple times, but if you have a specific question, definitely ask me because I'm here. Contemporary Irish Knits by Carol Feller. Yes, Paulette is wondering, are you wondering about that, or you're guessing that that's the name of the book? That is the name of the book I was talking about earlier. It's a wonderful book made by an Irish knit designer, and she talks about all the different mills that are in Ireland. So it's a beautiful book. Oh, Lori's saying, good morning from stormy Oklahoma. Already been to the storm shelter. I am sorry. I hope everything's okay. I did not realize you guys were having big storms today. Yikes. Okay, so here we are working across row number 7. So again, we're going to start out with the usual. We're going to be doing those front post double crochets into the front post double crochets below. So we'll start off with those, 1 and 2. And then there's 3 herringbone half double crochets, or knotted double crochets, in a row. So we're skipping those first 2 stitches, remember to do that. And then we're going to work those 3 knotted double crochets, 1, 2, 3. And now we're going to be working a front post treble crochet into the next post stitches that we get to. So here's our next 2 post stitches. We're working front post treble crochets into each of them. So we yarn over twice, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. See how it had to reach over there to attach to that? That's why we're using a taller stitch on those stitches that kind of go to the side. So there's our next front post treble crochet. And then we are going to skip the next 2 stitches of the working row that are behind. Remember to do that. And then there's going to be 3 knotted double crochets in a row in the working row. So right here, knotted double crochet, knotted double crochet, and another knotted double crochet here. Now after we do those, we're going to be reaching backwards with those front post trebles. So these are a little trickier to find. Sometimes you kind of need to like put your thumbs in here to figure out where those stitches are. So there's 1 and there's 1. You can see those 2 posts right there. There should be like a little bit of a gap after them right there. That might help you find them as well. So we're going to be working front post treble crochets around each of those. 1, 2, 3. Yarn over twice. 1, 2, 3. There we go. So you can see what's happening here. We're kind of widening this out. And then we're going to go right into making more of those front post trebles over here in the next section here. So that looks like a very far place to go, but this is going to slant that way. We're going to reach on over and make front post treble crochets into each of the next 2 post stitches from below. Just like that. Okay? Now we're going to skip, we have to remember to skip stitches in the working row for these 2 posts and these 2 posts. So every time you're making those post stitches, just remember whatever was right behind them, you're skipping. So 1, 2, 3, 4. The next stitch is going to be worked right here. So that's a knotted double crochet. We're doing, let's see, where are we? 4 knotted double crochets in a row right here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we're going to do 2 more front post treble crochets in those post stitches from below. So right down here. 1 and 2. Oops. And then we are going to move right on over to this section. So you can see we just worked these posts. Now we're going to be working these 2 right here. So yarn over twice, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. See how we're working, every time we make those post stitches, just remember, you're always looking for post stitches you've already made. That's what you're going to be working into at this point from now on. Okay, so there's your next front post treble crochet. We're skipping 4 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, because we just made 4 post stitches. And then we're going to do 3 knotted double crochets in our working row. So 1, 2, 3. And we're going to finish up here with 2 front post treble crochets in the post stitches from below. So we are right here. And then we're going to, remember, you've got to skip those 2 stitches from behind, and we're going to do a knotted double crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. Just like that. And then we're going to end with a front post double crochet into the last 2 stitches. 1 and 2. So you can start to see, like, oh, it's really obvious what side of your work it is. You can see where the cables are, so that helps. And if you just remember, anytime you're making one of those cabling stitches, a post stitch, you're always going to be making those around a post from somewhere below. And you just have to kind of be looking at the chart or reading the instructions to know how many stitches to skip, and you know, whether you're working the front post trebles or the front post doubles. All right, so we're up to row number 9, which is right here. So row number 9, we're going to start out the same way with those 2 front post double crochets at the very beginning. So we're going to do those. And then we're going to skip the stitches behind and do 2 knotted double crochets, 1 into each of the next 2 stitches. And now we're going to do 2 front post treble crochets, reaching down here to these posts. 1, 2. We'll skip the stitches behind, those 2 stitches. And then we're going to do 4 knotted double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is where we are in the chart right there. So you can see we're doing another cable crossing right there. Oh, I think I already did that on this one here. Hold on one second. This is, oh, okay. I should have kept going on this one. Okay, I just realized I skipped ahead a little bit here. Okay, I'm going to leave this in here for the next step. Sorry about that. Everything, okay. So this was where we had ended at the end of row number 7. I'm going to work one more row of a knotted double crochet across. I had meant to show you that and I forgot. So I'm going to be doing that all the way across, and then we'll be ready for row number 9 there. Sorry about that. I was jumping a little ahead in my samples. But if you're feeling overwhelmed by all these cable crossings, know that you can always go back and watch this again. And the main thing is to just kind of understand what the difference is between a front post treble crochet and a front post double crochet. So that just has a different amount of yarn over pull throughs. And just, you always want to, whenever you're making those post stitches, you always want to make sure you're skipping the corresponding stitches in the working row, because otherwise if you don't do that, you're going to end up increasing and having all these extra stitches. So if you can remember that, that's very helpful. And just know that when you're working straight down and you're making a post stitch, it's going to be a front post double crochet. And if you're working slightly at an angle, then you're going to be working a front post treble crochet. That's also a very helpful thing to just kind of have in your mind there. All right, let me just check in. what we've got going on here. Let's see. Okay, we had a question. Is that in the same hole from Susan? Okay. Oh, looks like Cindy already answered that. These are consecutive stitches, not increases. Right. Yes. We are not doing any increasing. We're going to have those 32 stitches every single row. So if you're working something, if you've already worked a stitch, whether you worked in the post or whether you worked in the top, you don't work it again. All right. All right, I'm just going to add another little bit of yarn here. Okay, so we're going to start off with those front post double crochets. Now we are back to the beginning of row number 9 here. So I'm working front post double crochets in those first 2 stitches, skipping the stitches behind, and then working 2 of those knotted double crochets. So 1 and 2. And then we're going to do 2 front post treble crochets. So remember, every time we're working the post stitches, we're always looking for the next post stitch from below. So there's 1 and 2, and then we skip the corresponding stitches from behind, and then we're going to work a knotted double crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. 3 and 4. And here we are at our next cable crossing, which is right here. It involves these 4 posts. So we're going to do them out of order. So we're making 2 stitches here, 1 into this post, 1 into that post, and then we're going to go back and do 1 into this post and 1 into that post. So because we're crossing, it's at an angle, we're doing front post treble crochets. So we're skipping these 2 posts, and we're going to work underneath the next 2. So here's our front post treble crochet. And here's our next front post treble crochet. And this time, the darker line is sitting on the top and it's going in this direction. So what that means is you can make when you're crossing over, you don't have to go back behind. You're going to go in front. So we're going to yarn over twice and working in front of those 2 posts that we just made. We're going to go down here and work into those 2 skipped posts. So there's the first one, and here's the second one. Okay, so now you can see it crossed in that direction. So you can contrast that with the cable that crossed down here. You can see it's going in this way, and this one is going in this way. What sits on top is the darker symbol in the chart, if that helps. Okay, so now we're going to skip 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches, because we just worked 4 posts. And we're going to do 4 knotted double crochets right here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we're going to do the same cable crossing again. So we're skipping the first 2 posts, working underneath that 3rd one and the 4th one, like that. And again, we're going to be able to cross over on the front of this cable right here, like that, working back over into those 2 skipped posts right there. Okay? So that's what we have right now. We're going to skip 4 stitches in our working row, 1, 2, 3, 4, because we just worked 4 posts. And here we're going to do 4 knotted double crochets. 2, 3, 4. And now we're going to work those same front post trebles into our post stitches from below. So 1 and 2. Those are at a slight angle, that's why we know they're trebles. And then we're going to skip the corresponding stitches behind and work not a double crochet into the next 2 stitches in the working row. And then we're going to work 2 front post double crochets into those posts below, 1 and 2. And then we chain 1 and turn our work and work not a double crochet into each stitch across. And just be careful on that, when you're working across, just be careful that you actually don't, that you don't miss any stitches. Your cables kind of end up getting a little wiggly looking here on the top. And so you can kind of just spread them out a little bit like that, just to make sure you can see all your stitches and nothing's hiding. All right. So we'll do a couple more, and then we'll skip ahead to the assembly, because you guys have actually seen how all of these cables cross. I will just actually at this point, I think I'll just talk a little bit about the chart and about how to continue the cables. So you're just gonna keep working, working your not a double crochets on the wrong side. On the right side, you're gonna be doing all those post stitches. And you can see here, just by looking at this chart, on the next row, we're going to be doing 2 front post double crochets, just like we always do, 2 knotted double crochets here. And then right here, our stitches go straight up and down, so they're front post double crochets that are worked into these 2 stitches, okay? And then you can see here, we're kind of bringing this crossing out. So we're gonna be doing those front post trebles here and here, and again here and here. Just make sure after you do these 2 front post trebles, you're not doing any stitches in the working row in between. You are going straight into doing more front post trebles here, some knotted double crochets there, front post trebles kind of reaching backward, 2 knotted double crochets here. These go straight up and down, so you've got those front post double crochets, 2 knotted double crochets, and 2 front post double crochets at the very end. So all of these stitches you've already learned how to make. You can see by working at the chart or looking at the chart, or you can just read this in the directions. It's all written out. You'll be working those double crochet. You'll be working a combination of front post double crochets here and here, here and here. And then the other areas that are towards the middle, those are going to be the front post treble crochets because they're going at angles. Okay. And here's another area on row number 13 where you've got the cable crossing right in the middle there. Actually, let me show you where that is. I can show you what this looks like. That's right here. So you can see this is crossing over in the same direction as these cables crossed at the beginning. So you're going to have to work behind your stitches at that center cable crossing in row number 13, right there. Okay, and we're just basically doing the same thing. We're just doing front post double crochet, a combination of front post double crochets throughout most of this. Most of these go straight up and down. So these are double crochets, double crochets, double crochets, here, here, and here as well. It's just right here where we cross over. Those are the front post treble crochets, and just be mindful to work behind your stitches to get those second 2 post stitches in there. Okay, so that's row number 13. Row number 15, that's what this is here, showing, this is actually after completing the row number 16, but this is showing row number 15 right here. You're kind of bringing these back toward each other. So a lot of these in the center are those front post treble crochets. Nothing's crossing over anything. You're not doing any cable crosses in this row. And then you've got these straight up and down. So you know that these here, 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 those are all going to be those front post double crochets, okay? And let's see, we've got row number 17 also. That's shown here. So row number 17, we've got cable crosses that go overlapping. When you do your second part of the cross, how I showed you guys, you do the first 2, which are underneath here. Then when you work your second 2, you can work them on top. Those are always the easy ones to work because you don't have to wiggle your hook in underneath the post stitches that you just made. But this is a really great project for learning the difference between working behind the stitches you just made and working in front of the stitches that you just made. That's how we write that in the pattern instructions, whether you're working behind or working in front, and what does that mean. I actually have a whole video about this on the Creative Crochet Corner website, because a lot of people tend to get confused, like how can you work a front post treble crochet, but you're working behind stitches? Like how can it be front and also behind? The front part is because you're actually, the way you're inserting your hook is in from the front to the back to the front. So you're working into the front of your fabric. However, you do have to go between, sometimes you have to go between those post stitches you just made. You have to, if you're working something behind the stitches you just made, you have to put your hook underneath them, like I showed you guys earlier. So that, if you need a little review of that, I was showing you that in row number 5 when you work behind the stitches. So that's really what that language is all about. I know that sometimes is confusing for people, so that's why I made a whole video about it, explaining the difference between all that kind of stuff. All right, so you're just going to keep on going in this pattern. I've shown you all the different kinds of crossings and all the different stitches that you need to know. And you're going to keep on repeating, go through your repeats. So that way, I think we do it maybe like, how many repeats do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 total repeats, because it's lucky. So you're going to have 7 total repeats, and you can see those repeats, it kind of comes out into the circle and goes back in. So every time there's that crossing, that indentation where it comes back in, that's another repeat. So you're going to do that basically until it's the length you want it to be, or where I tell you to stop when you've got those 7 repeats. And then you do a couple extra rows at the very end. There's a row where you're just working at the very, very end. Let me show you what it looks like. It's basically a repeat of row number 3, with the only exception of when you're making these front post double crochets, you're not working into single crochet stitches, you're working into post stitches. So it's even easier, but it's the same kind of thing. You're just kind of ending with something that looks like this, at the very end of your piece. And then when once you've finished your piece, I highly recommend blocking your piece. Blocking it just flat before you sew it together. Even if you're someone who doesn't like to block stuff, please think about doing it, because it will make a humongous difference. You guys have probably noticed as I'm showing you these samples, they want to curl. They're kind of curly, especially if you're making a scarf, you will need to block. If you made something out of acrylic like this, I definitely recommend steam blocking. Okay, steam blocking instead of wet blocking, which just means you can get out your iron, put it at a high steam setting, hover it above, and just kind of like, steam on top of it, but don't actually touch your project with your iron, just kind of steam, and then you can kind of pat it into place and it will relax and stop curling. The way that I design these cables, because when we cross things over, sometimes we end up with holes in our crochet cables. If you guys have already worked up crochet projects before that have cables in them, you've probably noticed this. You can kind of dig your finger into, like right here, I can make a hole happen. It's because we're doing things out of order, they're crossing, we've got all these long stitches. So I on purpose designed this so that the cables would kind of pull your fabric down a little. It's not going to allow it to like fully expand, and so that way it kind of keeps it from stretching. Like if I stretch it, you can start to see those holes. Let me see. See, there's some right here. I'll put my fingers in them so you can see them. If they get stretched out, you can start to see those holes, but I, on purpose, have these sort of slightly shorter cables, or post stitches, that are kind of shrinking. They're like not allowing your fabric to like fully expand to how long it would probably be if you just worked in that, not a double crochet forever and ever and ever. So this is kind of restricting the stretch of it. So for that reason, it's going to make it curl, but you do want to steam it out. If you worked in acrylic, if you made it in wool, like if you made it in the beautiful wool yarn that I chose in my project, then I definitely recommend soaking it. So soak it in water, squeeze out as much water as you can, and then just let it dry flat. Once you've blocked your piece, you're just going to do one little seam to connect it together. That seam is here. And so what I did when I put mine together, it doesn't really matter what end you put with which end, or or like which way you want your cake. Like you could have it look like this, or it could be a mirror image of this, but I would keep the end where you made your foundation chain, the very beginning of your piece, I would put that running this way from, you know, the neckline to the bottom of the cowl instead. So it should be this part right here. This is where we started instead of right here. And the reason I didn't want to put it here, like if this was your foundation and then you went around like that and this was the last row you worked, I didn't want to do that because that foundation chain is not super stretchy. It's not as stretchy as the rest of the fabric. So I thought that not having it stretch right here, if it was kind of restricting the stretch, it might make it curl or do some kind of funny thing. So I put it right here where it's causing no problems. So you're just gonna kind of butt those pieces up. Here, let me show you. Let's just imagine that this was our foundation edge of our piece, and this was like the last section that we worked. I know it's upside down, but just, you know, put in your imagination brains and picture this. So you would put them right next to each other, and then you're just going to do a whip stitch along the edge. Here, actually, I can show you a little bit of that, just so that you can kind of see what I did. You can seam it however you want to, but because we're working into the row end here, it's not easy to just sort of crochet 2 layers together how sometimes we like to attach things. I'm just going to anchor my yarn here so that I can show you how to stitch. Oh, hi Janet from the English Lakes. She says she's been looking forward to watching this. Thank you for saying that. I'm glad you're here. Got lots of hellos, you guys. That's very nice. Let's see. Oh, Amy, I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. Not sure what a knotted double crochet is. That it is the same thing as a herringbone half double crochet. So I can show you that one more time, but it's not a regular double crochet. There is yeah, we have another question about knotted double crochet. It is the same, it's not the same thing as a half double crochet. It's not the same thing as a double crochet. It is the same thing as a herringbone half double crochet, also called a knotted double crochet. So those two things are the same. I will show you. It is definitely not the same as a double crochet or a half double crochet. It is similar. Okay, I'll show you the seaming and then I'll teach you that stitch real quick, just one more time. So I just did a whip stitch. So I just grabbed a little yarn here, or from the edge there. I went under both loops from my foundation edge, and then underneath just a little section of this sort of bumpy turning chain right here on the very edge. So I didn't want to stitch into my posts, which are right here. So just, you know, just a little bit to the outside of your posts, there's that little area where we have the turning chain where we turned our work. So this is what it'll look like. Just kind of going under both loops of your foundation chain, which is why we worked into the bottom of our chain. It makes it really easy and tidy to sew those edges together. All right, so you would just seam it up until you get all the way up to this point here. And weave in your ends. And if you need to steam that little seam again or wet block that little seam again, you could. But it's probably going to be just fine as is, and it will be lovely. Okay, so let's go back to that knotted double crochet, because this is important because it's in here a lot. I'm going to slow down and do this knotted double crochet one more time for you guys. Okay, try to ignore, oh, that's good. We'll just ignore what's going on over here. All right, so I'm not doing the knotted double crochet yet. I'm going to be working those front post double crochets here and skipping the corresponding stitches. Now when I do that knotted double crochet, this is the same thing as a herringbone half double crochet, if you know how to do that. You do a yarn over, and then you insert, yarn over, and pull up a loop. And so if you're an experienced crocheter, you know at this point you could turn this into a double crochet, but you would have to turn it into a double crochet, you'd have to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, right? So you have to start with another yarn over after you pull up that loop. If you want to turn it into a half double crochet, so you would yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up. Again, you would yarn over here, and then you just pull through all three. Okay, so we've seen a double crochet, a half double crochet. Now I'm going to show you the knotted double crochet, aka the herringbone half double crochet. So to do that, you yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop. So far, the same, exact same thing as a half double crochet and a double crochet at this point. This is where it gets different though. Don't yarn over right at this point, okay? I know that you want to because we've all been trained to do that over and over, making double crochets and half double crochets, but don't yarn over. You're just gonna take this loop that's already on your hook and you're gonna pull it through the next loop, like that. That's what makes the knot. And then you yarn over and pull through two. Okay, so let me show you that a couple more times. Yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up. Do not yarn over at this point, but you're going to take that first loop on your hook and pull it through the second loop. And it helps me to set my middle finger right behind there to kind of hold that second loop. And at this point, when you have two loops on your hook, then you yarn over and pull through two. All right, let's do that again. Yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up, pull that same loop through the next loop, yarn over, pull through two, okay? So it's gonna make that little telltale little bump. That's how you know you're making the stitch right. You just have to resist making a yarn over after you pull up that loop. I know that it's hard, and I know that your body is gonna be confused, but you just have to pay attention to what your fingers are doing while you're doing that. I hope that helps. Okay, let's see. We did a lot of questions about that though, so I hope that I helped you guys out. Let's see, I want to make sure I answered any other questions you guys might have. Okay. Oh, Cheryl's saying the electricity was out due to the storms. Oh, that is such a bummer. Yeah, you guys can always rewatch these things, which is helpful to later. Oh, Cindy's saying, I see that hat in our future with the Aran cables. Would there perhaps be a sweater too? Pretty please. Oh my gosh, I would love to design that. I will think about that. Okay, let's see. If this were to be a straight scarf, how would you straighten out the bottom edge? So I'm guessing what you mean is the edge where you fasten off, perhaps, right here, or I'm not really sure. The edges are fairly, unless you're talking about it, to keep it from curling. I think that blocking would just take care of the curling. Otherwise, I'm not quite sure what you mean by straightening out the bottom edge, unless you're talking about this being just a little bit wavy here, but that can be fixed with blocking. Also, you could put fringe on the bottom of your scarf if you're having issues with that. Okay, let's see. Oh, we have Cindy's wondering if the soft Donegal yarn stretches much when it is blocked. It stretches a little bit because, well, I don't think the yarn stretches that much. I didn't find the yarn stretch that much, but it appears to get longer when you make this. That is a very good question. The reason is because those post stitches are kind of making this curl up, and it's making it a little tight. Like what we had talked about before, I wanted those post stitches to be just a little short compared to the background because that keeps your fabric from stretching out too much. But when you block it, it will straighten it up a little bit because, and it will stretch just a little bit because you're allowing those post stitches to just elongate just a little bit more. Because right now they're just like a little, like when you stitch it up, they're just like a little too short for how long they should be to let this relax. They do get a little tiny bit longer. But then at that point, they don't stretch out more and allow you to see those holes in between the stitches. I hope this is making sense. It will, but do expect that this will lengthen just a little bit with the blocking. I think this did lengthen maybe a couple inches maybe. I can't remember. But you can do a little sample, measure it first, and then block it, and then measure it after you block it. You could even just start working on it and block that little piece, and then you can continue working on that if you really don't want to make a gauge swatch, which I understand. Okay, so somebody's asking what my wool yarn is. This is from Studio Donegal. It is from a mill in Ireland. And it is 100% merino. And it has these really beautiful color flecks in it. And I did put a link to it in your download, so you can check it out. And there's other links in there too, like where you can purchase it, and also a link to a video so you can learn about how it's made. All right, I think we are out of time now, but I just want to let you guys know, for those of you who are crocheters, especially those of you who like tea, I am going to be teaching how to make this tea cozy, which is super adorable, in my next, my live, which is going to be in like a little over 15 minutes. So that is going to be on the Creative Crochet Corner website. If you guys want to check it out, it's free. There's going to be a pattern to go along with it. So I hope to see you guys there. All right, thanks for joining me, everybody. Bye.